So there's a massive shortfall in how much carbon needs to be sequestered out of the atmosphere. I think this creates an incredible market, a very large market. AI plays a massive part in it. AI helps you achieve those levels of efficiency. So I think there's a few things. When you got AI together with blockchain technology, I think that's when it
Mm-hmm.
really works well.
I mean, you've touched a lot on carbon. So why carbon?
Whereas with carbon credits, you're almost incentivizing people to live more sustainably. You're incentivizing people to keep their forests, to keep sucking carbon out of the atmosphere, because all that
Mm-hmm.
goes into carbon credits and they can sell to somebody who wants to offset their carbon emissions.
Hello everyone, welcome to BetterTech. So today I have Alan with me. Hey Alan, how are you today?
I'm very well yourself. Thank you very much
I'm
for
good.
having me.
Thanks for asking. Yeah, thanks for joining as well. So Alan, before we really take a deeper dive into the topic today, can you tell a bit more about yourself?
My name is Alan Wepener. I'm CEO of Svantero. I founded it about a year ago, just over a year ago. My
Mm-hmm.
background is mainly investment banking. I'm originally from South Africa. I went to the UK about 25 years ago. I then was in the investment banking industry for about 20 years. I moved down to Spain and Gibraltar, where I ran a financial company, a financial
Mm-hmm.
investment company. However, for the last 3 years, I was a managing director for a crypto exchange. I then decided to move to the UAE. A
Mm-hmm.
friend of mine asked if, is there anything that I can do around the sustainability space, specifically relating to cryptocurrency? And so what I thought I'd do is I'd look into it. And I realized that sustainability, fintech, and the blockchain actually work together very, very
Mm-hmm.
well. On many different levels when it comes down to restoring credibility to the carbon markets, improving efficiency, um, even price stability for cryptocurrency itself, and being able to use fintech solutions to create what I would like to think is the simplest access for the public to have to the carbon markets. So there's many different things that just work together. So basically, Svantero now is bringing together all that experience between investment banking, crypto, fintech, all that stuff all together.
Sure. So essentially, you can say that it's going to be a consolidated platform. I mean, where you have all of these pieces glued together in a way that people don't have to basically touch upon different systems. Rather, they can do everything from one place.
Exactly, exactly. It is the first complete end-to-end solution for the carbon markets, going from the creation of the carbon credits themselves through our decarbonization projects in Africa and South America, through to the tokenization of the carbon credits to bring them on chain to restore the credibility, straight onto the portfolio management system where people can just buy a cryptocurrency, stake it, and then earn all those carbon credits for themselves. That gives them the simplest access to the carbon markets. And then the last piece is our decentralized carbon exchange, where they're able to trade this, and we're also creating many uh, almost carbon credit derivatives on the exchange. So you can have carbon futures, DeFi products, and all that good stuff.
So, I mean, you touched a lot on carbon. So, why carbon?
So in when was it? I think it was at the as of the beginning of the year, over 200 countries have committed to being carbon neutral between 20 or before 2050. Right. In 2023 alone, I think it was 37.55 gigatons of carbon was released into the atmosphere. We only sequestered or sucked a fraction of that out of the atmosphere. I mean, it was only a couple of hundred million tons, right? So there's a massive shortfall in how much carbon needs to be sequestered out of the atmosphere. I think this creates an incredible market, a very large market. I think it's going to be probably one of the largest markets that's been created in a very long time, to the tune of 4.7 trillion US dollars before 2030. So the size of the market is massive. Another reason why I was very interested in sustainability was because when I looked into it to find out, well, what is a carbon credit? What are these carbon markets all about? And for your listeners who don't know, a carbon credit is equal to 1 metric ton of carbon that's being taken out of the atmosphere. Now,
Mm-hmm.
this can be traded, right? So let's just
Okay.
say I want to be carbon neutral. If someone told me tomorrow that, Alan, I'm going to tax you 170 US dollars or Canadian dollars for every 1 metric ton of carbon that you put into the atmosphere, which is what they're actually doing in Canada right now. Okay, it's 170 Canadian dollars for you're being fined or taxed for every 1 metric ton of carbon going into the atmosphere. And they say either that or you have to be carbon neutral. I would immediately think I need to sell my car, I need to stop cooking, I need to switch off my heating and do all that good stuff. But you actually don't, right? What we can do is we can industrialize carbon credit production, which means that if I've got all these carbon credits, each carbon credit, because it's equal to 1 ton of metric ton of carbon that's been taken out of the atmosphere, I can use them to offset my carbon emissions. And therefore, I can become carbon neutral and I can protect myself from carbon taxes and carbon regulations and all that stuff. For me, this whole concept is fascinating because essentially what you're doing is instead of a country or a company going into an area and completely destroying the environment like they did in Nigeria. The oil and gas industry, they killed environments all over the world. They then make their money, the shareholders make their money, the government makes their money, and then the locals are sitting with an economical or an environmental disaster, right? Whereas in carbon credits, you're almost incentivizing people to live more sustainably. You're incentivizing people to keep their forest, to keep sucking carbon out of the atmosphere, because all that
Mm-hmm.
goes into carbon credits, and they can sell to somebody who wants to offset their carbon emissions in order to become carbon neutral, protect themselves from carbon taxes, protect themselves from carbon emissions, and all that. Oh, sorry, carbon restrictions and all that stuff, right? So I think that whole concept is very interesting. Also, when it comes down to managing, say, equity portfolios, if you get a whole lot of stocks and shares, you put them into an equities portfolio, it's rather difficult to say, well, I definitely know what the P&L is going to be of that company, and I know what the cash flow is going to be, and you quantify all these things, and then suddenly you have interest rates go up or down, and it throws your risk levels all over the place, and it's very difficult. With trees, that's sucking carbon out of the atmosphere, or biochar that's sucking carbon out of the atmosphere, you can forecast very accurately what they're going to be doing next year. Trees don't care what the interest rates are. Trees don't care about microeconomics or macroeconomics. Trees just keep on taking carbon out of the atmosphere at a very reliable rate. So we can quantify very reliably what our carbon credit production is going to be based on certain amount of forest or certain amount of biochar or certain amounts of waste management or whatever it is, right? So I think there's many things that attracted me to the sustainability industry. The reliability of the carbon credits, how it incentivizes people to do good things. Um, and I saw there were many inefficiencies in the carbon market. And when I see inefficiencies, I see a problem. And if I see a problem, I see potential for growth. I see potential for improvements. I just see a fantastic opportunity to make things better. So that's what brought me to it.
Right. So these opportunities and challenges that you talked about with the carbon markets in general, I mean, do you think that the introduction of AI into in this particular space is going to improve uh, the solution for these challenges, or I mean, do you think that it's something overrated? How would you say in the context of these carbon markets?
AI is a game changer. It doesn't matter what market you're looking at. It can
Mm-hmm.
be carbon markets. It can be literally any. One thing it does is that, I mean, if you go back, say, 10, 20 years, many companies define their success based on how many people they employ. If I came up to you 10, 20 years ago and I said, well, I've got a company, I employ about 100 people or 1,000 people or so many people go, wow, that's very impressive.
Mm.
And, it's a sign of your success. I see it the other way around. I think that the ability to run a company on the least amount of human resources
Yeah.
and maximize your operational efficiency is key, right? It gives you a significant competitive advantage in order to run your organization more efficiently. I mean, the fact is that the key to a sustainable competitive advantage is actually resource optimization and operational efficiency. Those are your two things. They're very difficult to duplicate anywhere else because if you have a great product, anyone can duplicate that. If you have offer great value for your product, saying, okay, well, I'm going to lower the price of my product, I'm going to undercut the market, and you get an advantage on the back of that, That's great, but anyone can duplicate that. Anyone can copy that. But copying operational efficiency or resource optimization are the most difficult things to do. That's ingrained in your company, right? And AI plays a massive part in that. AI helps you achieve those levels of efficiency. So I think there's a few things. When you got AI together with blockchain technology, I think that's when it
Mm-hmm.
really works well. Because so for instance, one of our partners is Planetary Carbon Standards. What they do is they use satellite imagery and remote sensing to monitor our projects in real time. So their satellites can monitor nitrogen levels in the soil, moisture levels,
Mm-hmm.
wildfire risks, and all that good stuff. They've also got these little remote sensors that they put on the trees to identify how much carbon's been taken out of the atmosphere. All that information is then relayed over the internet. It's then quantified with artificial intelligence in order to maximize the efficiency and reliability, but also because it's done so quickly, it means it can be done at a very low cost. And if we do it at a low cost, we can offer that functionality to smaller farmers around the world. Like, for instance, over in South America, there's many farmers who cannot use some of their land, right? Because their land is, protected for jungle and all that stuff, right? And if it was too expensive for them to certify their carbon credits, they can't become part of the carbon markets. They don't have access to the carbon market. Using artificial intelligence to drive down costs, to make it more affordable, opens up the carbon markets to many other people. And this allows us to obviously make it more reliable, but then it goes onto the blockchain, and then the blockchain technology is what makes it immutable. That restores the credibility on the carbon markets. That makes it transparent and traceable and so forth. So I think blockchain and AI, when you put them together, it has many benefits.
So, also, do you think that with the mix of blockchain and AI powered training models would result in improved liquidity and price stability, maybe as well?
Indeed, it adds credibility to it. So one thing is that when you have price volatility, it's generally caused by lack of liquidity and uncertainty. If somebody can standardize well, the standard of carbon credits, if they could add that credibility to it, saying that, fine, my carbon credit from biochar production in Africa, for example,
Mm-hmm.
is a Puro certified carbon credit, and that goes through a tokenization tool. I think they use Toucan at the moment. We'll be doing our own tokenizations, but people can be very reliable, or they can have a lot of reliance on the fact that they know the methodology that was used for it, they know where it came from, all the information relating to that carbon credit, whether it be the origination, the methodology, all that stuff is going to be embedded in that smart contract. So you can't change it. And so I think when people are confident that the information and the quality of carbon credits that they have is going to add yes, it's going to add certainty to what they're buying and selling. It's going to add credibility to the carbon markets, and so people will be able to trade this with more confidence. And I think that will bring more people into the market, knowing that this is an asset class you can trade. It is an asset class that if you are trading, you're doing good things for the environment. And with people being attracted to that, that's where you increase your liquidity. Right. So, and if you got more liquidity, I think that credibility will attract more players into this market. And our decentralized carbon exchange, I think, will be one little piece in the puzzle in being able to provide that liquidity. I think so. At the moment, the carbon markets tend to be very fragmented. Um, and so if someone's sitting with, say, 1 million carbon credits from a forest in Zambia, for example,
Mm-hmm.
and they want to trade those on an exchange, it might be very difficult for them to do that, right? So what we're saying is that, well, we can tokenize those for you. We can bring that on chain after the process, and you can list it directly on our carbon exchange, our decentralized carbon exchange, which opens up your carbon credits to the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone with a wallet, so like a MetaMask account or anything like that, can just connect onto our platform and then trade those carbon credits. So we're trying to implement the infrastructure to and the credibility that will attract that liquidity, and then that will obviously subsequently bring in a lot of price stability into the market. It will reduce the potential for, well, reduce the fragmented market and and bringing that structure into this growth market.
So you touched upon sustainability, you touched upon blockchain, AI, all these things. But there is another evolving concept which is called green finance. So
Yes.
what is that exactly?
Green finance is it's like finance surrounding the environmental sector. I mean, everything I've touched on is deemed to be green finance. So,
Yep.
so if you there's many companies around the world, investment companies, asset managers, and they need to determine the amount of carbon emissions on their portfolios. For example, you've got um, orange category portfolios. That means that the uh, the instruments or the investments on that portfolio have nothing to do with sustainability. This is your oil and gas industry that practice zero sustainability or anything like that. It's basically to make profit, and that's all there is to it. You have light green, where the objective is still profitability, but sustainability is not the main thing. It's a part of it. You just happen to be making money in a sustainable way. And then you get dark green. Dark green is where where sustainability and saving the environment is actually your primary objective, right? And profitability just comes after that. Now, I think as the world has become more aware of climate change, people want to have access to more green and light green portfolios. People want to promote the industry that relies on sustainability. So green finance could be financing projects that have a positive impact on the environment. So let's just, I mean, the technology can get quite profound. I mean, if you're looking at DAC, which is direct air capture, every carbon credit is worth about 700 US dollars, but it's very sophisticated very sophisticated type of technology that goes into that. When you're looking at biochar production, each one of those biochar carbon credits is 100 to 150 US dollars each. Forestry, they can range between, say, I don't know, $8 all the way up to $40, depending on where they are and the certification, the region, and all these different things. So the method of these carbon credit production is quite significant. But green finance as a whole touches all of these things. Just remember, every carbon credit is an
Hmm.
asset with a value, right? So there's both money to be made and a lot of things. So green finance kind of encapsulates all of that. What we do is we provide the simplest access for anyone to be involved. You see, and the reason being for this is because historically it's mainly the industries that have been fined. You've got so many emissions that you're allowed to emit per year. If you go over that amount, you have to buy carbon credits in order to offset your excess of carbon that you put into the atmosphere, right? So this is what created that market where people were buying and selling carbon. Now, again, it's all been around industries and sectors and companies. It hasn't really hit the population yet. And I'll get on to a little bit later why I think that it will hit the general population. And I'll also I, you know say that what we're creating where the population doesn't if it's not mandatory for them to actually become carbon neutral, they can certainly become involved in the carbon markets in the simplest way by simply buying SVO, staking it. They get all those carbon credits for free put into their wallet. It's all automated. So this is how they can have access to the sustainability markets.
So what you're saying is that in the future it might be sort of a more open market for general public to basically trade in and invest in. I mean, in the future, right? Right now, it's not like as mainstream as it could be. But what are your thoughts like having this market being adapted as like a more open market or more accessible market to people?
Indeed. So let me take a step back. All right. If you go to Dubai, for example,
Mm,
many people are driving around in 6.3 liter G wagons. You go to America, they've got 5 liter Fords and all the rest of it. There's a lot of people driving very high powered motor cars, right? And emitting carbon emissions a lot. If every country wants to be carbon zero by the year 2050, they're going to have to do a lot more than just looking after the industries. You almost need that obligation or additional taxes on the population to fund
Yeah.
decarbonization projects to take that carbon out of the atmosphere, right? And this is what they've done in Canada. So it's my view that it's just a matter of time before everyone will be paying a carbon tax in one way or the other, right? If the government comes up to you and says you've emitted 3 metric tons of carbon this year
Yeah.
as an individual, well then you got to pay tax on the top of that to pay for some kind of forest or something to take that carbon back out of the atmosphere.
Right.
You're going to get taxed on that. What we do, we actually provide the simplest access to becoming carbon neutral and protection from carbon taxes, right? All you have to do is buy SVO, stake it, and you'll receive a free income of our carbon credits. So just to let you know how we do this, we got access to about 300,000 hectares of land in South Africa, as
Sure.
well as other sustainable projects. We've got access to forests in South America. Um, and what we do is we create these carbon credits, we produce them on a mass scale, we then tokenize them on the blockchain, and we
Mm.
distribute all of them to our SVO holders for free. Okay.
Sure.
So
Okay.
what that does, it means that SVO provides the simplest access to be carbon neutral, protection from carbon taxes and carbon restrictions, and also just help you feel good. If you want to be carbon zero, you can do it. If you want to just build a sustainability portfolio, you can do that as well. And all you have to do is buy SVO and stake it. That's all you got to do, right? So this is how we're kind of bringing that sustainability angle to the broader population before it becomes mandatory for them to be carbon neutral, because it will be. It's starting around the world. There is a push for the general population to be carbon neutral, but what we're trying to make sure is we provide something where you don't have to sell your car, you don't have to switch off the heating, you don't
Mm.
have to stop cooking, right? You can carry on life as normal. We're industrializing carbon credit production so that you don't have to. So that if you say that you're spending or sending out 3 metric tons of carbon into the atmosphere every year, that's fine. Buy enough SVO, stake it, so you get the 3 carbon credits that you
Credits.
need. At the end of the year, it'll just offset your carbon emissions and will protect you from all of that, and you don't have to change your lifestyle.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, Alan, at this point, I would like to take your leave. Thank you very much for your time today. It was really a very enjoyable conversation on a new thing. So, I think the
Yeah,
audience enjoyed it as well. So, I would like to host you again on maybe a more in-depth session on one of the topics that you touched upon generally, and maybe enlighten our audience on the further details about this interesting topic. Thank you very much for your time today.
fantastic. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to the next time.